Hi, my name is Inelkis Marte, and today I'm going to be informing you guys on the historical origins of coffee and the impact it has on today's society. So, to start off, coffee is the second most consumed beverage in America, with water leading that highest ranking, of course. Coffee is considered to have caffeine, which is a source of dopamine that goes into your body and gives you that energy boost you need throughout your day. That's why most of the people have a cup of coffee in the morning before they go out to work, school, whatever the case may be. Now, you may think, where has coffee come from? Did it originate from the United States or was it found somewhere else? Well, to know that coffee was actually first discovered in Eastern Africa in the highlands of Ethiopia within the 19th century, around there. However, there's not a specific date, just because when there has been many myths, the main one being a myth about a boy named Kaldi who had a herd of sheep. And his herd of sheep had consumed these so-called wild berries that gave them some sort of energy fuel. He noticed how their mood had drastically changed after consuming these berries. So he brought it upon himself to consume these berries as well, and noticed himself that he had more energy, he was more alert, and so with verbal communication, he had spread it throughout his village, and soon enough, it had spread across the country. After it was found within Ethiopia, it led its way through Egypt, as you can see in here, and then throughout Egypt, it went to Arabia, and soon enough, across the country into the United States. Now, as it's traveled throughout these different countries, caffeine had been grown differently. There are three main types of caffeine that you can find. The main ones being, give me 1 second, is Arabica, there's also Robusta, and there's Liberic. So, because of all these different types, it also expanded throughout the different cultivations. The cultivations in Africa, the cultivations in Arabia, the cultivations in Brazil, all depending on where these different caffeine origins came from. It all managed to come to the United States, and that is why we have so many different varieties of caffeine. Now, you might ask yourself, is caffeine really healthy for you? It has become a controversial topic around the United States just because people believe that the effects of caffeine, if you consume too much, is very drastic towards your health. Yes, coffee is good for you. However, it becomes unhealthy once all the additives are added, all the flavors, all the syrups, and things like that. That's why people typically recommend to have one cup of black coffee straight, no sugar, no syrup, nothing, just plain caffeine. Here is a representation of the nutritional facts of caffeine. Typically, 1 cup of coffee has about 3% of potassium, has 3% of manganese, and also has vitamin B2 with a leading 11%. The factors of coffee over here states that it protects against diabetes, it also protects against Alzheimer's, it improves asthma control, as well as protect against cancer. Now, it's not saying that coffee is 100% protective over all these diseases. However, it does have an effect on how you can deal with it better and cope with it. Now, many may say, yes, there are pros, and yes, there are cons for having caffeine. Over here, I am demonstrating the few reasons as to why too much caffeine or a considerate amount of caffeine may be very bad for your health. So to start off, it disturbs your sleep. When you have a cup of coffee, typically past 6 o'clock, that dopamine in the caffeine beans stays in your system and makes you feel more alert and awake. And when the time around 11 o'clock reaches, you don't feel tired, you don't feel any source of exhaustion in your body. However, because of that, that can cause the sleep deprivation. The second leading cause is caffeine consumption is also a blood pressure riser. It affects your blood pressure because how it states dopamine is an accelerant. Because of that, it boosts any source of blood pressure you have going up. So typically when you add sugar, it also increases that as well. Caffeine can also have an effect of overdose. So having too much, like I said before, of anything in reality is way too bad for your body. The last one is it makes you feel addictive. Caffeine is a source of dopamine which has that additive in it that makes you want to become addictive, causing many withdrawal symptoms, giving you headaches, migraines, any sorts of headaches, injuries, things like that. However, everything that has cons must have pros. As for caffeine, the pros are it boosts physical performance. It also helps with Alzheimer's. It also increases brain activity. It regulates red blood cells. It can also be an aid for weight loss if people who are looking to do that. And it also improves mental focus and activity. So you may ask, why do people become more addicted? Now, like I've stated before, since caffeine has dopamine, that chemical is an addictive product. As we see over here, we are drawn to caffeine because of its dopamine. It is also a stimulant which controls the central nervous system and allows caffeine to be dependent on the source of energy and fuel. Once you consume caffeine every day, it becomes a physical threat for a mental body and how you portray your activities throughout the day. However, caffeine has not only done that to our health, but it has become a social norm. It has become more, I'm going to school, or in the morning, everyone I see has a cup of coffee, I want to go grab one. So because of all the social norms and everything, it has become a sense where people feel like they must, or it's a typical day-to-day thing to do, to have a cup of coffee. My data has shown, according to statistics, that in which circumstances and settings do you drink coffee. The majority of the people have stated that they normally drink coffee in class, while studying, also in coffee shops, by themselves, during meals, or a chore. In which purposes do you drink coffee? Over here, it says basically to stay awake, which is the main reason, as well as because they just like the taste, in a social objective setting, because they're addicted. And how many cups of coffee do you drink a day? On average, the person says 1 to 2 cups a day, having this large portion right over here in dark red. Over here, the second leading up is 3 to 4 cups of coffee, which is the typical if you have a long day and you're in a rush and you need that energy boost to keep you awake, to pull you through the day. Then with a leading after that 8% is 4 to 5. Now this is the case where you actually know you will not get any sleep at all. So becoming so dependent on caffeine is a negative thing. However, the historical origins of caffeine was all started because of the taste, about how its energy helped us throughout the day to continue on, to help workers or farmers continue out their day when they didn't really have that much energy source coming in. Coffee has gone a long way, all the way from Ethiopia to the United States, with different type of origin caffeine beans, as well as the different flavors we have today, like caramel, mocha, hazelnut, things like that. And throughout the years, statistics have shown that about 70% of the U.S. population will consume at least 1 cup of coffee a day. As you can see, coffee has been a great source towards American society, and as well as the businesses are booming just because of the products selling, consumption. For instance, Starbucks, the main leading organization in the United States as of today to have sold the most caffeine in the United States, as well as Dunkin' with the second leading. All these companies know exactly what the consumer wants. They want the flavor, they like the sugar, they like the taste. Anything along those lines helps. And it's just to make the customer happy. Overall, caffeine does have its pros and cons. Caffeine is good in some cases, and it's bad to the extent when you add so many additives to the point where you can't even taste the actual coffee by itself. On top of that, the history. The history of caffeine is very unclear. It can be dated back to the 800s AD, but there's no certain factual as to exactly when it was founded. However, caffeine overall is a great source. It keeps up the metabolism, it helps prevent certain diseases, and overall, it can be good for your health with portion. Portion is always key. Thank you for listening.